Hello, West Seattle High School students. Today your counselors will be presenting on the transcript review. This is to help you choose your classes for next year in the 2022-2023 school year. So today's objectives are to review the registration process as well as the timeline. And we will also check your progress towards graduation by using a 4-year plan that we'll model later in this presentation. So before we get started, I want to reintroduce you to our counseling team. So my name is Miss Nguyen, and I have with me
Miss Newman, hello.
And Miss Nutters, hi.
And so if you have any questions at all, especially about registration, please come visit us in one of our offices. So the registration process timeline. So for today, we are going to review your transcripts and figure out where you're at for graduation. And then in the month of February, we'll be actually helping you pick your classes for next year. So in advisory on February 2nd, we will do a lesson on how to pick your classes and what classes are available. So registration is online and completed through the source, which you should be familiar with. And then on February 9th, during advisory again, you will have an opportunity to listen on a student panel to request, suggest, recommend certain classes that you may be interested in. You also have an opportunity to ask your teachers questions about next level classes you may want to take, maybe what career or pathway you're interested in that they can suggest to you. And of course, you will be able to ask your counselors any questions during lunch in the Commons. So don't feel like you have to do this process alone. We all got your back. And then on February 16th, which is the last advisory in February, we will close the deadline, we will close the registration online. So what this means is that you have to register for classes through the source by the 16th, or else your counselors will pick your classes for you. And me personally, I want you to pick your classes.
You do it.
All right, so as Ms. Nguyen mentioned, we are ready and willing to help support you with making your choices for next year. So these are some ways you can get help. Throughout the week of February 7th, we, as all 3 counselors, will have tables set up in the Commons to be able to answer your questions in person, so you can get drop-in support there. And then, as Ms. Nguyen also mentioned, on that February 9th advisory Wednesday, we're going to have an opportunity for some counselor Q&A during the student panel, and you can also have some conversations with your teachers on that day about whether or not certain classes would be a good fit for you for next year. Know that staff at West Seattle are ready and willing to help you make those decisions. So the materials that you're going to be using today are going to include your academic histories, which sophomores and juniors, you all will receive a printed copy of your academic histories in class. Freshmen, you guys don't have any credits yet because we haven't reached the end of the semester quite yet. So you guys are going to be looking up your current grades in the source to see what credits you have so far. But 10s and 11s, you'll get a copy of your academic history, and then you will also all be getting a copy of your 4-year plans, and we're going to take a look at what that looks like in just a second. All right, so these are the graduation requirements from Seattle Public Schools, and you'll see here that they are listed as credits, and 1 credit equals a full year, a half credit equals a semester. So I'm going to be referring to them as credits, but know that credits also equals here. So grad requirements are as follows. You need 4 credits of language arts, 3 credits of social studies, 3 of math and science as well, 2 of fine art, 1 of CTE, 1.5 PE, 2 world language, a half credit of health, and then 4 credits of electives, but really just enough to total 24 by the end of your senior year. You don't need to worry about getting 4 credits of general electives. Generally speaking, if you're taking above and beyond the minimum requirements, you'll get to 24 by the end of your senior year. Quick word about art and world language. We do have some flexibility with those there, depending on your high school and beyond plan, what you're going to do after high school. So for example, world language isn't necessarily required for high school graduation, but it is required for most 4-year schools for admission. So we do have some flexibility as far as graduation goes, as far as world language and art is considered. All right, so before we get into our activity for the day, which is checking your own progress towards graduation, we're going to just hit pause for a minute and breathe, because we understand that this can be a little stressful, taking a look at your grades, some of which you might not be too thrilled with, or just talking about kind of your future plans in general. It's a lot. So we recognize that. We want to kind of give us some space to sort of just chill before we get into the activity portion. So we're going to be leading you through an activity that's called 5-finger breathing, hand breathing. You've probably heard it called different things, but what we're doing today is we're using our hand. You can do this on your desk, under your desk, wherever makes sense for you. We're going to model it on the screen for you here. So what you're going to do is you're going to start by tracing the outline of your hand. You're going to start near your pinky, and you're going to go ahead and start to trace your hand and inhale as you trace up, and exhale through your mouth as you trace down. Inhale deeply in, exhale all the way out. Inhale up, exhale down, inhale, exhale, on your thumb, inhale up and exhale down. All right, so hopefully you notice that maybe your heart rate slowed a little bit, got some oxygen flowing. We are clear-minded and ready to start our activity.
Okay, so now I'm going to take us into the amazing activity. Now, often, this is not a unheard thing that counselors will have kids roll into their office and say, oh, I want to talk to you about what I need for graduation. And that is exactly what we're about to have you do. So we're going to have you walk into registration actually knowing what classes you're going to need to do. And we're going to use our random sophomore as our example of grades that we have so we can start filling in a graduation checklist together. So your teacher should have passed out what your academic history is, and we're going to come to that. But first, we're going to do a all-together example of one student. So you can see that on your academic history, they are grouped by subject area. So starting with lit, going into health, and then we have these math classes. You can see all of this as well in the source in your historical grades, but it's grouped by chronological order. So it's going back based on timeline, but you can always ask for us to print one of these for you as well if you need one, but you can get all of this information in the source as well. So we're actually going to fill one of these bad boys in. So you're going to start at the top with just fantastic human or your name. Just you are a fantastic human being. So we're going to start with walking through these grades one by one. So this student has passed lit, and ways that we know that they passed it is because we have this column here that says what they have earned in terms of that credit requirement. You'll notice they have a credit of 0.5 because they have a grade of an A. So anything that is a D or higher is going to grant credit. So we're going to come into our graduation checklist and just check off lit 9 because it is completed. Then coming down into health, we're going to scroll down into the health area and check that bad boy off. And then we have algebra and geometry completed. So I'm just going to write alg, checkity check. Oh, boop, boop, and alg. Then bring in the geo. Making progress on math, just making your way downtown. Okay, and then coming into the PEs, we have personal fitness, weight training 1 and 2. So I'm just going to check off those 3. Okay, now I do notice that the grades did cut off over here, but that we can see that they earned credit. So we know that they have, we can still check these classes off. Foundations of Social Studies is actually an elective class, so it grants you elective credit. So we can pop that in right here and spell things correctly. And then mentorship for this student, I'm jumping ahead here, but this student earned mentorship. Now you'll see it's 0.25 and 0.25, so that equals 0.5. And if you pass mentorship, you'll actually earn 4.5 credits, so 2.0 credit from coming to mentorship. So we're working, getting you towards those elective credits just by being here, which is what Ms. Newman was saying in terms of the credits, the general elective credits just kind of build. Like if this student takes a math class their junior year, math would waterfall into the general elective category. So as soon as you hit it, it waterfalls into the general elective, which is your catch-all. Okay, so we're going to do physics and chem. Come up here. Physics and chem. And check those off. And I forgot to check off World History 1, so let's do that while I'm here. And we're going to check off our Spanish. So in this scenario, this student's Spanish, for whatever reason, it's kind of a fun one, is 0.25 for Spanish 1.
I think they took it in middle school, maybe, right?
Yes, they probably took it in middle school, and that's why you phone a friend. So it's 0.25 and 0.25, and so what that's coming in, I'm just going to put it in, is 1, because one of these boxes is the equivalent of 0.5. Okay, so we have this filled in with this student. These are classes from last year. It's not including their current classes, which, you know, low-key, y'all should know your current classes because you're currently in them. So I'm going to assume that this kid is taking some of these classes, but we can look as, you know, if we were in their 9th grade timeline last year, or if you can go back a year in the past and say, what should I take next year? You will notice that this student doesn't have any fine arts or any CTE credits. So I'm hoping that they have some this year. If not, as when we walk into registration, this would be a good cue for you if you were the student to say, my goodness, I do need some fine arts and some CTE classes. And I will just point out that photo or graphic design count for both. So for those 2 classes, you can do that, and they both count. Same class, you only take it 1 time, but they count in 2 categories. Okay, what is a delight and a treat? You now are experts in filling out a graduation checklist, but we're not going to send you to do this on your own. We're going to do a Q&A so that we can come back together and make sure that you guys feel good before you walk into the next step. So just a reminder in terms of things that we're going to be doing in registration. We had to do this presentation a little bit earlier based on just what was the timeline and advisory. So you guys are getting a heads up that registration is coming, and then the month of February is the awesome, like super exciting, can't even wait for it. I don't know how everyone's going to sleep because registration is starting. It starts February 2nd. It opens, you can start putting them in on the source starting on February 2nd, where that 2nd week of February is the gate help. If you have any questions, ask those questions. If you are debating like, hey, my sister took AP Modern World, but I'm not really sure it's right for me, you're going to be able to talk to or hear from Ms. Doms. You're going to be able to hear from our teachers to be able to be like, okay, this is what you should expect. So you can kind of get that assessment of like, okay, is this really what I'm ready to do and walk into for next year? We're going to have students that are going to give you their feedback. We're going to be there. Like, you are going to have so much support, so you shouldn't feel alone, but this is sort of like your heads up, kiddo. Things are going to happen in the month of February where you're going to have to start making decisions. February 16th, it all shuts down. And after that, we're choosing classes for you, which is really our biggest nightmare. But I mean, like, please don't make us do that because we hate it. So just do it. No big deal. And we'll give you help to make sure it happens. So we're going to transition into our live Q&A. Thank you very much for your patience in this presentation, and we'll see you in a second.